Little memento.
Full house.
Oh gosh, we got 4 more minutes. I can't be quiet that long. But we don't have our little thingies anymore. Thursday. I've been working 7 days a week. It's all like every day is a Monday. And my boss has been on vacation, so like, and he keeps like working. It's like, what the hell's go away. My teammate and I have been planning like a vacation for him in Africa or some third world country with no internet, no phone service.
No comment.
So the only way we're gonna get any relief is just send him away. I didn't look at it. Best of intentions. I opened it right up. Hopefully there'll be people out there within a bit. That's the hardest part sometimes, is it nobody
Yeah.
shows. No's. I've been poking fun at
The affordable housing Portland raised the
and the
average
other morning I was at breakfast with my dad. Of course, he had my dad.
You know, according to the clock in the back of the room, it's 6 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. Proceed with the roll call.
Red Bybee,
Here.
Terry Dufault,
Here.
Bruce LaViere,
Here.
John Nelson.
Here.
Mark Papa,
Here.
Steve Ross,
Here.
and Jeff Skiles.
Here. Okay, next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do we have any corrections or changes to the agenda as presented?
I move we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, rolling on. Next item is our election of officers. Steve, would you like to run this portion of it?
Yes, I will, Mr. Chair. For the purposes of election of our annual officers, I will proceed with the nominations for the chair, and then once a new chair has been selected, that individual would then proceed with the nomination and the selection of the vice chair. So if I could, I will open the floor for nominations for the position of chair for the year 2019.
I nominate Mr. Bruce.
Second.
We have a nomination and a second for existing chair. Is there another nomination set forth? All right, well, seeing none, nominations are closed. And if we could take a roll call vote on this item?
Greg Bybee,
Is that a verbal, please?
Do I vote in favor? Aye.
Yes.
Sherry
Okay.
Default,
Aye.
Mark Papa,
Aye.
Bruce LaViere,
He's not, I'll pass, I'll abstain.
John Nelson. Jeff Styles,
Aye.
and Steve Ross.
Aye.
Thank you. So Mr. Bruce LaViere has been reappointed as the chair for the Planning Commission for 2019. I yield the floor.
Okay, then we're entertaining nominations for vice chair. Do we have any nominations for that? Volunteers?
I nominate Sherry Dufault.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Seems pretty safe.
I try not to be absent too often.
Nobody's bumping you off, you're not quitting, right?
Any other nominations for anybody else? If not, you want to go through the roll call on the vote for vice chair?
So we're closing nominations then? The nominations are
Well,
closed?
nobody else is nominated today, so.
Greg Bybee,
Aye.
Sherry Default,
Abstain.
Mark Papa,
Aye.
Bruce LaViere,
Aye.
Jeff Styles,
Aye.
and Steve Ross.
Aye.
John?
John.
Miss
Oh,
John?
and John Nelson.
Aye.
Sorry.
So easy they forget.
Now that we have a chair and vice chair, next item on the agenda then is the approval of the minutes for the November 1, 2018 minutes meeting. Do we have any changes or corrections to those minutes?
I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Second that.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. Next item is our time for public comment. This is time for anyone who wishes to speak on topics that are not on the agenda for tonight. Does anyone wish to say anything at this point? Okay. You can go up to the microphone and give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Rich Mays, 367 Summit Ridge Drive. Apparently, I'm going to be your next mayor in about another week. I just wanted to come to the Plan Commission tonight and introduce myself to all of you. In my circle of travels, when I decided to run for mayor, the two questions I get most often are why would I want to be mayor, and why did I move to the Dalles? And I want to answer those two questions and probably just take a couple minutes. My wife and I moved here 4 years ago from the Oregon coast. We followed our daughter out here, Christine, and her two kids, our grandchildren, Carter and Christine, ages 8 and 5. They lived right across the street from Dry Hollow School. Before we moved here, I was the city manager in Cannon Beach on the Oregon coast. I retired there in July of 2014, and before that I was the city administrator in Jefferson City, Missouri, the state capital. I was also the city manager in 2 towns in Illinois. So I've had a 40-year public service career, 33 years in city government, 28 years as a city manager. Why did I want to run for mayor? I was approached by a few people, but I've decided that I really wanted to use my experience in public service and in city management to do something for the community. When I did decide to run, I knew I had 2 disadvantages. One, we hadn't lived here very long, and 2, I'd never run for public office before. So I made it a goal to talk to as many people as I could before I made a decision. And now, it's been about a year since I've talked to a lot of people. A couple are sitting up here with you. I one of the things I learned is the passion that people have for this community and the vast potential that the Dalles has. That passion has manifested itself in a lot of community involvement because of people like you. And I think we all realize, and I certainly have realized in my years in public service, how important volunteers are and people that are serving their community. So the one message I did want to relay to you is to express my appreciation to you 7 people for all of the work that you're doing for the community. I have high hopes to realize that potential that I mentioned before, and I would like you to help me realize that potential and help make the Dalles a better place to work and play and live. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is presentations for transit planning and operations of the Dalles.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to introduce Ms. Cathy Fitzpatrick of MCED. She is their mobility manager. And Ms. Fitzpatrick gave this presentation to the Urban Renewal Agency Board at their November meeting. Since MCOG dissolved last year, MCED has taken over their transit and transportation operations, and they've been going through some expansion and some changes this past year, and we thought it'd be a good idea if she were to come here this evening and let you know what they've been doing, what some of their plans are. It does affect land use. Transportation and land use go hand in hand. As you'll see, there are a number of items that will be forthcoming here in the next year or so that will involve our downtown area and some mobility and some connectivity planning that we're doing. We also have Mr. Dale McCabe here this evening. He's the city transportation, or the city engineer, I'm sorry, city engineer. And he was the lead person on the city's transportation assistance plan that was adopted by the city council a couple of years ago as well. So with that, we thought we'd give her the floor this evening. I think we're ready. Here is our little clicker. Take the microphone if needed.
So which is for, which is the
All right. Hi. Thank you for the introduction, Steve. I, as the mobility manager for this region, so Mid-Columbia Economic Development Districts covers 5 counties in this region, in the Gorge. And that includes Sherman County, Wasco, Hood River, Skanania, and Klickitat County across the river from us. As mobility manager, I coordinate the 5 transportation agencies that serve each one of those counties. And I also provide support and facilitate projects for active transportation modes. So, for instance, have been working with Dale on a Safe Routes to School, some planning and projects, and I do so for the other counties as well. So, pretty much all things mobility is under the scope of my work. But definitely trying to coordinate these projects, especially regional projects, like the historic Columbia River Highway, for instance. So today I'm going to talk to you about transit in the Dalles, and also transit in the Gorge, because there have been, in the last year, there's been a lot of expansion of services that a lot of people don't know about. And if you don't use transit, you probably haven't become aware of all of these really amazing new services. I won't go into the list here, but definitely the things that are more interesting for a planning commission are that transit really serves better land use and value. Transit provides that connectivity for the community. So when you're looking at land use planning and connectivity, the importance of connectivity, transit is one of those foundational components. Transit supports affordable housing and affordable development, and definitely more valuable development, especially if you're looking at high density. Because you can reduce those parking minimums And instead of surface parking lots, you can look at actually constructing buildings for people. And definitely as we look forward to the future of the Dalles, the future of transportation is mobility and is mobility as a service with transit as its backbone. And that's a really important concept to keep in mind. So Steve mentioned the Dalles Transportation System Plan. The City of the Dalles has really invested in transit for many years now. And one of the biggest investments they've made was the feasibility analysis, that a chapter that is in the Dalles Transportation System Plan. And that feasibility analysis was a deep dive into what kind of fixed route systems would work the best in the Dalles. And on the merit of that chapter, the link, which is Wasco County's transportation system, or public transportation provider, on the merit of that chapter, ODOT awarded a significant funding for the Dalles' first fixed route system, which will be coming this year in April. I'm going to talk a little bit about the regional system, just because I want you to realize how much the regional system has grown and how much it is impacting the Dalles right now. So here you can see the 5 counties that I work to coordinate with. We also coordinate with ODOT that runs the Columbia Gorge Express, and that serves Portland to the Dalles. And so that's a really important service as well. It serves Portland to Hood River, and then CAT transfers, and then riders transfer from Hood River onto CAT to get to the Dalles. I've met many a person from the Dalles, in fact, an older couple just recently who were traveling from the Dalles to Portland to visit their son in Beaverton, and they were so excited to do it on the bus. It was really exciting. We kind of giggled the whole way there because we were getting on the Max right after the bus let us off at the Gateway Transit, and we didn't have to worry about traffic at all. It was really fun. So these are the new services that have come online within the last year or so. Just, kind of a broad look at that. You can see I tried to dive into a few of these areas, Portland to Hood River, and of course Skamania County to Klickitat County, and then across the bridge, here's the White Salmon to Bingen to Port of Hood River. That's running about 11 times a day across the bridge, and Goldendale to the Dalles and through the Dalles. So right now, MATS, the Mount Adams Transportation Service, is serving the Dalles, a loop around the Dalles, and then back to Goldendale. In fact, I was talking to one passenger who rides that bus regularly because one of his favorite restaurants is in Goldendale, and now he can ride the bus to get to that restaurant. So these are the new and old public transportation services. The new ones, we've got a Mount Hood Meadows shuttle that is running from Hood River up to Mount Hood Meadows. Of course, the Mount Hood Express, which runs along 26 and hopefully will link up with the other transit services here in the Gorge. And then the transportation providers, Columbia Gorge Express provided by ODOT, and the other county transportation providers. So great new opportunities have come up in just the last year. One of them, the biggest one probably, is the House Bill 2017, which established an employee tax that everyone pays in Oregon, and has brought considerable and will bring a considerable amount of money every year for the foreseeable future for Wasco County and the link, the Wasco County's transportation provider. Right now, we're predicting about $400,000 a year. This is new money. This is not supplanting other old monies. This is going to be on top of the other federal and state monies that the link gets. So this is a really exciting new funding source. So we've got great public-private partnerships that we've established in the last year. especially with large employers like In Situ, who are purchasing a pass that allows all of their employees to access Mount Adams Transportation Services and and CAT services and ODOT services. So with this one annual pass, the employees can ride the bus between their campuses, between Bingen and Hood River, and those employees who live in Portland can jump on the commuter bus, the new commuter bus that CAT is providing now, and get to Hood River. And I want to mention that that commuter bus goes both ways. So I've ridden it a lot to get to Portland, to get to the ODA offices where I have meetings a lot of times during the day. Let's see, of course, the fixed route service expansions are amazing, and then lots of cool new tech. So one of those cool new tech projects are a mobile app. So just from your smartphone, you can see what services are near you. So you just bring up, you can get it free on any type of phone. It's called Hop Through, and CAT services will pop up, MATS, Skamania County very soon, and the link very soon as well. And just buy your ticket right from your phone. This is the employee Gorge Commuter Pass that also lives on the on every employee phone for those employees who work for In Situ. And then, of course, trip planners. Trip planners are really important. Google Maps, Apple Maps, Microsoft Maps. Go to any of these maps online, and you can figure out how to get from here to there in the Gorge on transit, which is a really great great tool if you don't know how to read a bus schedule. Also, a bus tracker. So you can figure out, you can find, just by using your phone or going online on your laptop, you can find out exactly where your bus is, and you can see it moving. So it's represented by a little arrow, and this was a screenshot, and you can see it moving towards you. We are working on a website that will look exactly like, well, almost exactly like this. This is the Northwest Connector on the coast. It's a partnership of 5 transportation providers, just like ours, and they have their own trip planner that is dialed in just for them with an interactive map. So lots of visitor exploring trip ideas, and then of course lots of information about each one of the separate transportation providers. So the new partnerships, talked about that a little bit. We're reaching out to public entities, to private entities to partner, to provide the services that each one of these entities really want. For instance, Columbia Gorge Community College really wants a direct connection in between their campuses in Hood River and the Dalles. They also need more connectivity between the city of the Dalles, the city center, and the college. So we're working on those projects. So, diving into good land use planning. All of the cool new tech tools, all of the buses, all of the new fixed route services, none of that is going to get people to ride the bus unless there is good land use planning. So we really depend on you to be making sure that your planning really supports transit and public transportation. So and basically, you know those things. Those are the smart city tools. High density, absolutely. Mixed use, yes. Excellent bike ped facilities. So when you're looking at that last mile, first mile connection, people who use transit, they walk and they bike to the bus stop. Parking management plan. So looking at the carrots and the sticks, really looking at parking management so that it's not so convenient and so cheap for people to be driving their cars, that it's much easier and much cheaper to get on the bus. So really guiding people to use public transportation. Transportation demand management plan. We could get into that a little later. A lot of these things I could spend an hour talking about, but But these are the tools, and I think what you're mostly looking at is making those good land use decisions, looking at development and looking at new development, and then looking at any improvements that could be made that will include transit. So working with the Port of Hood River right now on Lot 1, which is just an empty lot, but in their new conceptual design, they have a transfer hub for transit, which is designed for this road right here. So they're designing it to accommodate multiple buses, because right now down at the port, there are 5 different bus systems that connect. So at any one time, you may have 3 or 4 buses that are lining up to let passengers off and pick passengers up. So really important, that thinking about curb space and those amenities that serve riders. Also, and not just thinking about bus shelters, but thinking about that mixed use. So that coffee shop that's right next to the bus transfer center. Thinking about those amenities that where it makes public transportation an adventure and something that's very convenient and also fun. So bus stops, bus stop amenities. We've been working with the city. Thank you very much. The City of the Dalles is wonderful to work with. Looking at where our bus stops are going to go, and this is after the fact. So this is looking at the city center, looking at areas like MCMC and the college, and trying to figure out and Water's Edge, and trying to figure out, okay, how is the bus going to pull in safely? How are the passengers going to get on safely, and how can the bus pull out in the most convenient and safe manner? So thinking about those things and planning after the fact is difficult, but the city has been really, really great to work with, and figuring out those necessary transit facilities. City of Hood River has been, it's been a difficult process. They have a lot more congestion downtown, so giving up 2 parking spaces for a bus stop, even though public transportation alleviates the parking concerns, giving up 2 parking stalls is a real painful event. So best to do it now when people don't actually have to give up something later. So this is, when I'm talking about curb space, this is just an example. So this was a typical scenario this summer when there was the trolley, the Columbia Gorge Express, the CAT bus, and the Link bus as well. So you have to really think about how the bus is going to be able to pull in and out of curb space. And here's a shot of that type of planning where sometimes it just takes some striping, some paint to make that curb space possible. And these are things that, of course, as you work on development, things to think about. Definitely first mile and last mile. So those great bike and pedestrian facilities, welcoming, so that people don't mind walking a quarter mile to the bus stop, that it's a pleasure, that there's a coffee shop on the way, that there's residential above that coffee shop, so maybe that person actually lives above the coffee shop, grabs his coffee, and then onto the bus stop to get to the Columbia Gorge Community College campus in Hood River. Looking towards the future, definitely is mobility as a service. So when you look at the apps that exist now, for transportation link all sorts of modalities together. So whether it's electric scooters or an electric shared car, or a pedicab, or an electric bike, all sorts of modalities are now being mixed together. And millennials don't really see the car as freedom anymore. They see their phone as freedom, because these are the services that their phone connects them with. And as always, it's the bus. It's really when we start talking about hyperloops and the tunnel in LA, that serves one car at a time, when we start to talk about all of these futuristic things, the AVs and EVs, it all comes down to the bus. So all the transportation experts and the transportation futurists that I've been reading about, all point to the bus as the backbone of the future of transportation. So we have a lot to celebrate. We had a celebration this last summer for all of the new transportation services in the Gorge. And I hope that you as a planning commission can help us to really look at the land use that's required to make transit and a really vibrant community successful. Any questions?
So how do we find out more information in terms of routes? I mean, is there a place where you can get all that information? So
Yes, so if you are looking for, let's say I want to go from the Dalles City Center to Portland, you can go to like Google Maps, you can go to Microsoft Maps, Apple Maps, so you can do that on your phone. You can go to the separate, like if you know that you want to get on, say, the commuter bus that goes from the Dalles to Portland, and you know that CAT operates that, you can go to their website and you can get a schedule. You can look at a schedule, or you can do their own trip planner and just and kind of type that in.
Okay.
The gorgetranslink.com is that website already exists. It houses the 5 transportation providers, so the 5 counties that provide transportation, and also gives the information for ODOT's routes as well. And that's the website that I was talking about that's going to be redeveloped. And right now, it's a great place to go if you're looking for a bus schedule or if you're looking for the latest board meeting minutes. But it's not such and it doesn't have, it was developed a long time ago, and it doesn't have that interface that's possible now. Lots of tech out there for transit and that interface between the rider, the potential rider, and the transit agency and information.
So in a less tech way and a bigger picture view, where would you go to see these are, like if I wanted to take a, that aerial look of, oh, this is where they're congregating or parking or switching, or so that I kind of get that visual,
Yeah.
Where would I go for that?
So that, you can go to the gorgetranslink.com and you'll see some of those maps. We're designing, with the help of Alta Planning, we're designing a map right now that gives that really basic view. Some of those maps that I was showing you gives that kind of quick shot, but I'm not really good at graphics, so something like that, but really a lot simpler. And I think that's what you're talking about. I don't need to know that the bus leaves at 3 o'clock. I need to know that it actually leaves from this point and goes to this point at all, and then I can go further and start to...
From a planning standpoint, I might simply want to know where are the property areas that are important, not that I really want to get on a bus.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. Okay. So for the Dalles, right now, they are the transit center at the link, working with city staff to figure out the routes for the fixed route system. It's not been solidified yet.
Okay.
I can give you the route for Mount Adams Transportation System. I can show you what route they're doing and what route Columbia Area Transit is doing in the Dalles. So I can show you those routes. For the link, which is really going to be your go-to for Wasco County and for the Dalles, that hasn't been established yet. But that is the fixed route system that will be implemented in April.
Okay.
And so I will, I'll stay in touch with Steve, as always, and make sure that I get those route, like a simple map of the basic route systems.
That might be a good way to link us in as we're, no pun intended, I guess, as we're, looking at things and just sort of having an awareness of, oh, this is an important place in a transportation viewpopoint,
Yes.
as opposed to this is someplace that's like never going to make any difference,
Yeah, never going to
right?
make it on the fixed route.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
loop. The other place to go right now is the transportation system plan. Go to the transit feasibility analysis,
Okay.
and that very clearly, so they used a software system called Remix that allows you to see the most densely populated areas where people are trying to go from and get to.
Okay.
So whether it's to work, whether it's commuting, or whether it's to school, or whether it's to shopping, it shows the Remix software system allowed it was Nielsen that did that feasibility analysis, and that software system was new when they used it. Allowed them to map out a couple of alternatives. That slide showed, I think they gave us 3 alternatives based on where those at the time, those dense population centers and the employment centers and other services are. So that would be a great place to start, because that's
Thank
already
you.
there.
Right now, the initial fixed route that's being proposed to be released in April, there was like the initial five spots for pickup and drop off. It was the transit center, spot over by Goodwill, up at college, MCMC, and then down at the Veterans Affairs
Okay.
building, the old transit building. Those are the initial 5. We're looking at whether there should be another 1 or 2 added in there, but we're also looking at the time that it takes to
Okay,
go out.
thank you.
And those are the places where Matt's and Kat are stopping now.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, can a person just call a regular phone number to get information
Yes,
from? Okay.
absolutely, yes. So it's the service is called One Call, One Click, so you can definitely just call any of the, you call me as mobility manager. That's one of the things that I do is travel training or trip planning for people individually. I had a couple here in the Dalles that wanted to figure out how to get to the airport without using a car. And so I was easily able to get them their schedule and tell them exactly how to navigate to the max, and then, it's 13 minutes to the airport, it gets you right there. So they were delighted. So that's something I do, but every one of the transit agencies, so the Link here in Wasco County and Sherman County and CAT and Hood River County, each one of them, just call them. There are several people who are, that's what they do all day, is answer those kinds of calls and make sure that you get that trip planning or the schedule that you need.
So, for instance, if you wanted to go to Portland for the day, what exists now for that? I mean, how many times does, what's a schedule that you could go there, shop, and come back home? How many times does that happen? What is on the ground right now for us in the Dalles?
So for you in the Dalles, there is the commuter bus leaves. You would have to drive to Hood River to get the early morning bus, which I do. I live in Mosier, so I drive to Hood River. There's a park and ride right there at the CAT Transit Center, and then I pick up the bus there. That's the 5:30 a.m. That's when I usually take to get into Portland, because I usually have an enormous day packed full of stuff when I'm there. And then I take that last bus back home, back to CAT, and then which leaves Portland at 6:30 p.m. So there's the commuter bus that you can take, and then there's the Columbia Gorge Express, the schedule is, they go from Hood River to Portland 3 times a day, but they also connect up with CAT. So if you're trying to just leave from the Dalles, you can leave from the Dalles and get to Portland and return.
On CAT?
On CAT, yes, so you have to do a transfer in Hood River. There are a couple of the buses, and I don't want to confuse you, but there are a couple of the buses that go directly from the Dalles to Portland. And that would be something I'd just sit down with you and just, show you how to do
All
that.
those options.
Or you
yeah.
can go to Google Maps and,
Okay.
yeah, and that'll come up for you.
This is exciting. eh?
Yeah, it is exciting.
Yeah.
It is really exciting, and yeah, it's great not to have to navigate Portland traffic, or just to be able to use public transportation here in the gorge.
Yeah, it's a first. Cool.
Any other questions? Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is a public hearing. This is a request CUP 173-14, modified condition number 13, status update pertaining to submission of a traffic and improvement plan for Dry Hollow Elementary School. Property is located at 1314 East 19th Street and is described as 1N 13E10, tax lot 100. Property is zoned residential, low density, RL with a community facility overlay, CFO. And I think I should turn it over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you may remember, back in November of 2017, we had a public hearing that discussed a condition from a conditional use permit from 2014 at the Dry Hollow Elementary School. And that was a condition that brought in, I think it was two modular classrooms at the time, and included with that was a condition that revolved around some student drop-off and pickup improvement plans. And at that time, there was some requirements placed on the school district to go through the planning process and finding funding for the particular improvements, coming back before this body at a later date, and then Planning Commission would hold a hearing, making a decision whether to move forward with that item. So we came back in November of 2017 for a hearing on the progress of that particular condition. And at that time, the school district was requesting extension of a time for those improvements to be constructed. So part of the modification that was placed in effect in November of 2017 allowed for some additional time on the school district, but also required them to report back at various intervals during that school year on the progress they were making on some of their temporary improvements, traffic improvements, traffic control for student drop-off and the pickup. I think they were here, their staff report. We've got a date in February and a date in May of last year reporting back on the status. They had some information on the number of students that were taking the bus or walking to school or getting rides to school. And at that time, as part of the modification of that condition, you wanted the school district to report back at another hearing following that school year on the success that they had, as well as identifying some funding for those proposed improvements, and then having some construction and engineering cost estimates. And originally, the condition read we needed to be coming back before you in July of last year, following that school year. So we had a couple delays on the part of the district getting their cost estimates from their engineer. We had some various work that was done in concert with the Blue Zone project up there in the city and the school district. I think they ran through a couple of examples on some temporary queuing of cars and et cetera at the drop-off and pickup area. And so we weren't able to get back before you during the summer. We also had a couple of our meetings were also canceled. So we have representatives from the school district here this evening to present to you what they have been doing. Included within your packet is a letter from their engineer looking at some of the improvements that they're being proposed, cost estimates, et cetera. And then I believe the school district has also completed discussions with the city and the county on some enterprise zone funding as well, so I think they want to report back to you on that as well. And again, we have Dale McCabe here, the city's engineer, who has been involved with assisting the school district on this particular item. So again, this is a public hearing, and following the public testimony and closure of the hearing, and this is on page 3 of your agenda report, that if you are satisfied that satisfactory progress has been made in this modified condition number 13, we do have a suggested motion for you that move to find that the North Wasco County School District number 21 has satisfied the requirements of modified condition of approval number 13 for conditional use permit number 173-14. However, and in substitute motions, if you determine that satisfactory progress has not been made in satisfying that condition number 13, then we also have a couple of motions there as well, as to continue the hearing, et cetera, et cetera. So again, we've got some attachments from the original agenda reports and minutes, as well as the memorandum from Klein and Associates with the cost estimates, and that's the school district's engineering. So that concludes the staff report, if there's any questions or comments. And I do know we have representatives from the school district here this evening.
Did you say that the proposed is on page 3 or page 13, or what?
Well, the report begins on page 13 of your packet.
Okay.
What I was referring to was page 3 of that report, which is actually page 15 of your packet. So.
Great, thank you. Too many pages.
How many numbers? So again, that concludes the staff presentation.
Does the school district wish to come up and say something then? You might give us your name and address just for the record.
I'm Randy Anderson from the school district, 3632 West 10th Street in the Dalles. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. As Steve just reported, the genesis of this was to address traffic congestion around the Dry Hollow School, presumably resulting from placing the modulars there. I think we'd be naive to think that we're going to reduce the number of cars that go up there. But I do think we have made some strides in reducing congestion and making it more accessible for parents to drop off and pick up their students. And again, I guess the condition technically says we were going to report in July, so instead of how was your 4th of July, we'll say Happy New Year instead. We're actually taking a two-pronged approach. Part of the improvements will be on the school district's property, and part of them will be in cooperation with the city and a grant that they're applying for. So I think I will turn it over to Dale to discuss the city part, and then I'll conclude with what we have done. So Dale, if you want to do the 19th Street portion.
I have copies of this and out to you as well, so you can see it a little better than on the screen. So, as Steve mentioned, back in February and May, the school district came before you and kind of gave a proposal of what was going to be happening out on East 19th Street. And so at the end of the school year last year, for the last week and a half of school, in like coordination with the school district, Blue Zones, and the city, a trial period, which is called pop-up, was done up at at the Dry Hollow School, mainly along the 19th Street frontage, and then also over in the gravel area. And it was just laid out with cones and paint. We tried it for the last week and a half of school. And, took information, talked to some of the property owners that were adjacent to the project. We also talked to the parents that were dropping and picking up the students. A web page was formed for people to be able to give their comments. During that process and even after that process. And so we were able to take all that information and compile it together and kind of determine what worked, what didn't, what maybe would work a little bit better, or just take some of the suggestions and just the input from the community that was utilizing it. So the city, along with the school district for that 19th Street frontage, was looking, in blue zones, was looking at applying for an infrastructure grant through the Safe Routes to School program. Monies were, I think Cathy had mentioned about the House Bill 2017. Well, monies were set aside for that House Bill, from that House Bill 2017 for a Safe Routes to School grant and for an infrastructure grant. There was going to be $10 million that were set aside for basically a statewide, anybody in the state could apply for it for the Safe Routes to School. And you had to submit a letter of intent by August 19th, I believe it was, and then you had to submit the actual grant application by October 15th. So we wanted to give this little trial period at the end of the school year, and then try to be able to take the information from that and compile what we would be applying for from the grant. Upon submitting the letter of intent, we received a word back that they had received for that infrastructure grant, they had received 140 applications, and the total grant monies that were possibly going to be being asked for was over $100 million. So that $10 million wasn't going to go very far, but we still threw our hat in the ring to see if we could get a portion of that. We were supposed to find out sometime in December or January of this year whether we're successful or not. We haven't heard back yet or not, but we did get a grant application submitted by that deadline on October 15th. So as a result of the pop-up that was done and taking feedback from the neighbors and taking feedback from the parents and anybody that left comments and stuff on the web page, basically what we ended up doing was the big item that everybody was most in favor of was this mid-block crosswalk. Getting that installed. We did have this like snorkel lane. When we did our pop-up, we had, we were calling it a snorkel lane, but it's basically a drop-off lane. It would act as a lane that was coned off in the mornings, so that in the morning parents could drive up here, and the intent was for them to pull up here, stop, let their students out, and then pull back into merge back into traffic. We had a second one that was set up here that gave parents the ability to go to two different places. What we found from that period was that this second one was way underutilized. It was hardly getting any use at all. Everybody was coming into this first one here. Then over here we also had the cones set up for this drop-off area over here where cars could drive in, drop off, and then head back out. And we'd set up cones so that you didn't have just a big free-for-all, people driving in and out and backing in and out over here. And also created it's back-in parking, forward-out movement for parking in the mainly in the afternoon for the pickup time in the afternoon. And then we did put down at the intersection of Lewis and 19th, there was a mini circle that was installed with cones and paint to give the traffic the ability to come down here, and if they wanted to, they could navigate that mini circle and head back instead of having to travel down 19th Street to Nevada or Oregon and go down the hill. So as a result of a lot of the comments, that mini circle was not the most favorable one. We did have some opposition regarding that from the neighbors, so we took that into consideration for when we were doing this, putting this grant application together. So like I said, this second area that was determined as or was being used as a drop-off lane in the morning, and being way underutilized, we decided to go ahead and do away with it for the of installing that. And one of the big things that we determined too is that in the afternoons, what you need is more parking. That's the big thing, because all the parents drive up there, they park and they wait for their kids to come out, and that's just the need, is more parking. So we decided that we could do away with that drop-off lane, and if we converted this parking to a back-in, forward-out movement, just like what was tried over here, and seems to work successfully, that we could more than double the amount of parking spaces that you would get with the on-street parallel parking that is currently there. So that's what's being proposed for this the second half of the school portion or frontage there, is to put in this angled parking that, like I said, would more than double the amount of parking spaces that were there. And again, I didn't mention this before, but one of the original discussions or thoughts was that on the north side of 19th Street, that in order to widen the right-of-way, we have a 60-foot wide right-of-way up there. So in order to be able to get more improvements in there, such as on-street parking, the travel lanes, widen this out for the drop-off lane and stuff like that, we were looking at having to remove those parkings, or the planter strips that were located on 19th Street. That in itself was the biggest opposition that we heard from all of the neighbors on the north side of 19th Street, that they did not want to lose their planter strip.
Yeah.
So we took that information and determined that that wasn't an option. So we took that off the table. And so what will happen over on the north side of the school is exactly what's happening there right now, or the north side of 19th Street. It'll just continue to happen what's there right now. You'll have the on-street parking, and people can drop off their kids over on that side. They can also pick them up, but what we're going to require is that instead of just people being able to drop their kids off and the kids run across the street or whatever, if anybody parks over here on the 19th Street side, they have to go up and they have to use that mid-block crosswalk in order to get their kids safely across the street. And we have one in temporarily up there right now, and we had it in temporarily during the pop-up, the trial period, and it seemed to work really, really well. You know, we still had a couple of people that were ignoring it and running across the street, but overall, I'd say, 95% of the people adhered to using that crosswalk, and it really made a big difference up there. So again, the planter strips on the north side of the street are being left in place, and that seemed to satisfy the concerns of the neighbors. So in order to gain the width, we put together this map and looked at what additional width that we would need, and we met with the school district and the school board, and are asking for them to dedicate the necessary right-of-way width off of their frontage to gain that additional width in order to be able to put in that drop-off lane and to widen this out enough that you could put in the angled parking and still maintain the travel lanes that are there and the on-street parking on the other side of the street. So the school district and the school board agreed to dedicate that right-of-way, and their legal counsel and the city's city attorney are working the details out of that, and that's in the process right now. So, you know, we're looking at also putting in part of the transportation system master plan that was just done, was creating a shared roadway for bicycle facilities. So as part of this grant to help you know, give information or give more bolstering effect for pedestrian and bicycle, we wanted to address what was in the TSP, and so we would be looking at doing sharrows, which is putting paint marks on the ground for bikes, showing that it's a shared use for those travel lanes with bicycles and vehicles, and also putting up the signage for that. And then we're also looking at putting up some additional schools, all the school zone signs where they say, you know, school zone 20 miles an hour, putting up the flashing beacons on those two, that when school's in session, those beacons would flash, designating that it's a 25 or a 20 mile an hour speed zone. And then also with this mid-block crosswalk, we'd be installing those rapid flashing beacons for that mid-block crosswalk as well, so that when people are using that, it's highlighted and more visible for the pedestrians, and to alert the motorists that there's people in the crosswalk. So that is what the grant that was put together. The grant had to be submitted by the city because it had to be done by the jurisdiction that had control over the facility. So it couldn't have been a grant that the school district applied for and put in for, because it's not their road, it's not their right of way. So the grant that we put in for is for improvements within the city right of way, because we're the jurisdiction over that right of way, and the grant had to go through with the city being the applicant. We have, like I said, we submitted for that applicant on October 15th. We should be finding out soon here. The estimate that we were applying for was $392,000 for the grant, with a matching fund of about $98,000 from the city to try to get all of these improvements in. And we're keeping our fingers crossed that we can be successful in receiving that grant. So that's mainly what I have for the 19th Street portion. If you have any questions on that.
What's the fallback if we don't get the grant?
If we don't get the grant, then it will probably have to get back with the school district and, you know, see what steps they're going to be with the monies from the enterprise zone, what ones they're going to be looking at wanting to do, whether, I guess, just more discussions and what we can do. You know, there's the possibility of at least installing that mid-block crosswalk through the fundings that were set aside for the city for this year, but that's to be determined, I guess, after we receive word or not. But as far as all of the improvements, that would probably have to fall back to have more discussions of monies are gonna be available to try to be contributed to getting those improvements.
I see one problem you're going to have with the reverse back in places on the main street, and that is the traffic basically has to come to a stop for someone to back into them. It seems a conventional pull-in diagonal would work better. It would interrupt traffic as much.
Well, the reason for that too, though, is it's a new way of parking that's being, tried across the country, and it is a different style, But yes, if somebody's pulling up here and then backing in, they would be stopping the traffic behind them for a second. But you also, when you're going to do the reverse of that and pulling out, you then have visibility, and it's a safer situation than people that are sitting in there and then they're backing out. And especially like with all the congestion along 19th Street, people walking around and stuff, it's just going to hopefully create a better, a safer situation, rather than have people trying to back out into traffic.
That's where the kids are too,
Yes.
in the back.
So would that be used for parking in the morning?
Yes, it would. This will be just parking all the time. In the mornings, so in the mornings, the drop-off lane would be installed so we'd be installing new sidewalks, so basically along this whole frontage, by moving this over a little bit, all the sidewalk that's out there right now, and that planter strip would be removed, and the planter strip would be removed, the existing sidewalk would be removed, and there'd be installing new sidewalk. That fence that's along here would be moved back. It's going to be probably about 10 feet that everything has to get moved. So the fence would be moved, new sidewalk would be installed, and that drive lane, drop-off lane would be installed. There'd be a raised curb that's designating that from the curb line to the on-street parking. And then on the north side of that curb line, there would be on-street parallel parking, but in the morning, that parking would be closed off, so people can park in it from 7 o'clock to like 8:30 or so, to restrict that you see the drop-off lane and you don't have people parking in there and then kids coming and running across that drop-off lane. So there's no parking allowed in the AM, basically from 7 to 9, let's say. But then you'd have the drop-off lane working, and then in the afternoon, that drop-off lane gets closed, basically just coned off so nobody can get in there, nobody can drive in there, and then the on-street parking is available in the afternoons or any other time in the rest of the day, rather than that 7 to 9 period in the morning. And then that drop-off lane also becomes more of a staging area for parents to be able to stand, and just frees up some of the congestion that happens, on the sidewalk, with all the students and the parents. It kind of becomes kind of a staging area for parents to be able to stand and wait for their kids to come down.
I have a thought about Mark's comment, and that is, you'd have to see how much stoppage of traffic that back-in parking would create, especially in the morning, because the morning, it would be more of a problem if that happened than in the afternoon, because the morning, everybody's coming within a short period of time. Mm-hmm. In the afternoon, it's more
spread
out. So, if you said no parking during that period of time there, because, you'd have to decide, is this really a congestion problem here? Can we do, I think that's something you could do, would be to say, you can't park there in the morning.
Right.
And that way, the people coming out of the snorkel lane would be able to just they have to go that way
Right.
because there's not the turnaround. So, that might be a
That's
problem.
something that could be monitored.
Yeah.
And, signage could be put up for, enforcement could be put up for that if determined that it's necessary.
You also have natural breaks because you have a crosswalk there where the cars have to stop anyway, which then frees you up to make your turn.
Exactly.
In the school district, during the trial period, and I believe right now as they're still doing it, they have stationed a couple crossing guards at that mid-block crosswalk. And the one thing that, during the trial period that we found, especially like in the afternoon, kids come down and they go to use it, or parents are parked over here and they're waiting. Well, they wait till there's a big group of kids before they stop traffic and then take the whole group across, instead of just like, every time one student comes up or somebody's there, you just instantly stop traffic. And instead of doing it many times, trying to do it fewer times and have a bigger group cross. And I think that is something that needs to continue to happen during those times anyway, during the pickup and drop off times.
When do we hear back about the grant?
We're supposed to hear sometime by the end of December, first part of January. It's first part of January, so I'm anticipating hopefully hearing something soon.
And that grant is 300 and what?
We were applying for 392,000 and some extra dollars, roughly 393.
Okay.
What is that feature at the northeast corner of 19th and Dry Hollow?
This right here.
Yes.
So what we were looking at doing here was bulbing this intersection out, moving that crosswalk out so the kids, a lot of kids walk up Dry Hollow Road and they have to cross here. So by bulbing this out, putting in a new ADA ramp, a current standard ADA ramp, narrowing up this intersection, because right now it's kind of got a big radius there, shortening that up so the students have a shorter distance to get across that crosswalk, and channeling the traffic and keeping the traffic instead of having multiple, somebody trying to go there or somebody turning here all at once, and trying to just keep them stacked.
Similar to Kelly Avenue, where they, those improvements.
Up by the market.
It's a good idea.
And then I guess this is in the right-of-way too, along with what Randy will probably talk about for their frontage improvements. But since this is in the right-of-way, right now this is coned off over here in front of that gravel area. We would be looking at installing a single point of entrance, access for ingress and egress, putting in a sidewalk all along here, the ADA ramps, and then also creating about another dozen on-street parallel parking spots over there on that frontage as well.
That's part of the city's work?
That is in the right-of-way, so that's part of the grant that
okay.
we're applying for.
Nice.
Would that happen at this, if the grant was okayed, that would happen then in your first construction time?
Yes. So the anticipation is, if we are successful with the grant, that we would be finalizing this design and putting this out to bid this spring, with hopefully being able to award the contract and begin construction right after school's out in June, middle of June, and have it all completed by the end of August. Yeah. So it'd be done before the first start of next year. That's if we're successful, so we'll see. But
So Randy, you're going to cover what happens this school year?
Yeah, I'm going forward, yes.
So we did We also did have a neighborhood meeting before the start of this last school year. At the end of August, we had a neighborhood meeting. Blue Zones went and gave information to all the neighbors on the north side of 19th Street there and up Lewis Street to inform them of the neighborhood meeting that we were going to have, because the school district was looking at putting back in the cones and stuff for the temporary pickup and drop off and that mid-block crosswalk and over in their gravel area, and recreating that again for this school year. So we just wanted to have that neighborhood meeting with the neighbors and let them know that was going to be happening again, letting them know about applying for the grant and what we were looking at. This information was presented to them at that meeting. I think we had 4 neighbors show up to the meeting, but that they were the ones that had most of the concerns, and hopefully we were able to address their concerns. They seemed happy after we were done.
Dale?
We may have further questions of him, but go ahead.
Well, and I wanted, if you'll leave the picture up. So this year, we're still using the blue part over there, the temporary, and it's actually working pretty well. We're continuing to use this. We still put cones or candles out in the mornings, and people are getting acclimated to using that drop-off area. And the mid-block crosswalk, I think, is a terrific improvement. It does require Teresa to dedicate 2 more staff every day to go down and man the crosswalk in that drop-off area. I checked with our council, the agreement that they're working out with the city attorney is a dedication of that property. The school board's already approved it, and I think it's a conditional on like a 15-year window, so that if we're not successful, they can keep applying. So as long as the city secures funds to do that kind of improvement in the next 15 years, which sounds like a long time, but safe routes to school is a popular subject, so they're going to throw money at it every year. We will continue to use I don't remember I don't know exactly how many of those candle things we put out, but it's routine now. They put them out, parents drop the kids off, they put them back on the sidewalk until the next morning, and I think we've only had 2 or 3 of them walk away. So the part that's on our property, the pop-up now would be enlarged and improved. I think the drawings are in your packet. Oh, good. There's some on-street parking, as Dale mentioned. One of the costly things is the bioswale to catch the runoff from the pavement. And one of the other sort of expensive problems we have is right in here someplace is a utility vault and the water system that needs to be rerouted, and the power needs to be moved, and there's an utility pole down here that needs to be figure out what we can where we can move that. Some of the grading has been done. We did that in advance of the pop-up, and then we have just compacted gravel on there. The back-end parking works. People are using it within the teardrop, if you will. No sidewalks have been constructed yet. And one of the requirements of the condition was that we explore funding. And we have modified our agreement with the city to allow the use of the school district's share of the enterprise zone funds. This would be an allowable use of that. The cost estimate, however, is $625,000. So it would take us most of 3 years to accumulate that much money from the enterprise zone. But, so we got the estimated costs, the timeline, although it's stretched out some because of funding. Engineered drawings, so I believe it's a solid plan. It works. It worked during the pop-up period, and it continues to work. The parents are certainly getting used to it. And I guess our position would be that we've satisfied the conditions of the modified conditions, number 13. So, happy to answer any questions if I could.
So that 625, 500, is that just for that, or is that for all of the improvements?
No, it's just for that piece.
Okay.
I think it's, I don't think that they know necessarily how much work we've already done for the base. So I really seriously doubt that it would be quite that much. And we will have some compaction over the period of time we've been using it. So, but it's, as you know, sidewalks are expensive, and the bioswale thing is a pretty expensive project. But I think it's north of 500. Bottom line, I think we've made significant improvements in reducing the congestion up there just by being a little creative. Doing this piece certainly helped, and that, I think if we could bring 19th Street back on our property and have dedicated, as Dale just described, those drop-off zones and a place for kids to gather without being near the street and not jumping between cars and all of those things. So I guess that's my report.
We've come quite a ways since we started this discussion.
We certainly have.
And for me, it's been a pleasure to see the city and the school district working together.
Yeah, partners.
Common project. And, I'm impressed.
Well, thank you. And I guess this is the final one, but there have been several iterations that we've tried and thought about and met about. And so I too appreciate the cooperation of the city in helping us jointly solve the problem.
You have any questions?
Yes. If we do go ahead and say that the condition is satisfied, what do we have to, what tool do we have to keep you moving in this direction and not just drop the whole thing and go back to what it was?
I guess technically by the terms of the condition, not much. I think we're now committed, though, we're certainly not going to give our property, dedicated to the city to make those kind of improvements. We've already seen that this piece works, so it's likely that we're going to continue.
It would be nice to know if it comes to a halt, though.
Yeah.
So the biggest question on left is if the grant goes through for those improvements, right?
Well, yes and no. I think if we can continue to, we're using just a sort of a painted mid-block crosswalk,
It's an improvement.
that's a significant improvement. Could we go ahead and make a bump out there, perhaps? And I again think that with moving those candles out, and maybe ultimately you don't have to move them out, you could just paint a stripe on the street, people would know that that's the dedicated, they'll get used to that being the drop-off area. And again, I think the timeline is long enough with the covenants of the dedication that I got to believe sometime in the next 15 years they're going to fund that project as a safe route to school.
That's just too long. I mean, I think we might be doing a disservice by removing all the heat on all of us, because it's really easy to get used to a half-done solution. And the community could just start getting accustomed to the fact that it's kind of partially done. I mean, it's looked kind of partially done for a really long time. And I'd hate to see that happen. It might be better, even from a grant obtaining standpoint, to have some sort of something attached to it that makes it somewhat more urgent. I don't know how we do that in a, like in a cooperative, non-punitive kind of a way, but really, does that am I making any sense at all? I just, I mean, like, yeah. I used to use auditors to get done things that needed to be done in a public building that I managed, because otherwise I couldn't get people to listen to the fact that, seriously, the roof is going to fall in. So I would use, and it assisted in elevating, and sometimes it assisted me in getting grants.
Yeah, and I wouldn't disagree with your thinking, Sherry. I guess this body can do what they want, but from a strict reading of the modified conditions, in our thinking, we've satisfied them all.
Actually, you're not done.
Yeah, well, all it requires.
I don't want to be a stickler, but you're not done.
We haven't constructed it.
No.
We've identified a funding source and identified a timeline.
And if that funding source, the enterprise zone, for instance, that money gets diverted into other projects, this one suffers.
Well, yeah, it has other restrictions on it. We just added a covenant that allowed it to be used for this project.
Allowed it, but not required it.
Not required it, allowed it.
Well, the bottom line on all of this has been, how do you fund something like this? And neither the city nor the school district has a secure way of accessing the funds, and it's...
The school district, for the enterprise zone project fee, really has a predictable source of funds, but it's going to take a while to accumulate them.
That might be easier than the city trying to get a grant.
Yes, I think the city's piece, the improvements that they want to make on 19th Street are probably clearly contingent on receiving the grant. So we'll continue. If the grant is not successful, we'll still use the crosswalk and keep moving the cones out.
Sherry, would it satisfy your concerns if there was some way that the planning commission could track this or get some kind of additional feedback that tells us where the status of it is and where it's going?
Yeah, I unfortunately don't have an answer. I'm not sure. I have a concern that, because it's a lot of money.
Well, I think we all have the same concern.
It's a lot of money.
How do we?
But it's a marvelous project.
How do we achieve some kind of stake in the game, I guess?
Yeah.
Well, it seems like what's been implemented so far has been temporary measures, not much permanence. I would, look at it at a later date down the road. As I said, I think springtime, they were hoping to get it out to bid and have contractors come in. That might be a good time to have another review and take a look at the progress.
That was if we were successful with the grant.
Yeah.
Well, the good thing that's happened is that the plan that is intended is now working. It's now working on a daily basis. And the public, this is like way far in advance of what we were looking at last year.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
So the public is also quite aware of how it works and and they've experienced it and they're used to it. So it's not something, I don't think the idea is not going to go away. That is what is pretty permanent. So the block is the money appearing and actually constructing the final deal. So I would be for continuing having some dialogue, some asking for appearance periodically in order to know where this is going, and just kind of getting more, putting some pressure on all the parties concerned to continue, if they don't get the funding they're required, to continue seeking those funds. And giving the school district an opportunity from now until it happens of saving the money, putting that away so that they have it in, let's say, a 3-year period of time to do that part over on the northeast section, something like that.
Yeah.
So
We
it's
could be
moving
used as the
forward.
bad guys or the,
Say what?
we could be used as the bad guys or the,
Prod?
yeah, just, which is always helpful when you're in a budget discussion, right? Because.
We're a little bit outside of what the original
we're doing?
Conditions of approval were.
Okay,
I mean,
so,
Right.
It sounds like that, I kind of tend to feel like that they've met the conditions, but we could ask that they come back again and give us an update.
Do a modified
Yeah,
condition.
that'd be a good idea.
If I may, Mr. Chair, before you get into starting to discuss motions and amendments to motions, I just remind the commission that this is a public hearing,
Yeah,
and there may be other members of the audience who wish to speak during this time before you get into the deliberations on the motions.
well, anybody that wishes to speak, okay, come up and give us your name and address. We weren't blocking anybody from speaking, we just assumed.
No, that's fine, I was waiting. Chuck Carbone, 2100 Lewis Street. I just took some notes based on what was said so far, and I know you guys mentioned the painted lines useless in the wintertime. Nobody's out there shoveling the snow off, so. Just curious how we went from, the quote was 625,000 down to 392. What's the different contractors?
Two different.
Two different projects.
two
Different
areas.
project? Oh, I thought you said it was the same.
No, it's, so, I believe Dale's at 300 was for the front of the school.
right-of-way improvements that we applied for the grant was the 392 with the $98,000 match. So it's the combination of those for the improvements on 19th Street and along Dry Hollow Road in the right-of-way. His 625 is the improvements on the school district's property for that, in the gravel area, that parking area.
I got you. Can you go back to that picture with the, yeah, this one here? So one of the things just my opinion, I don't understand why we're doing away with the sidewalk. Well, leave the sidewalk, go behind the sidewalk for this road to be, I don't. So you're gonna get rid of the sidewalk and then put it back in?
Because the farther you go onto that school district side of the property and try to widen out there, then you get into the need for more retaining walls.
So what was determined, I mean, how far can you go? So you're saying there's not enough for a road without retaining?
Right.
'Cause it seems like there is. I don't know. I mean, I live there, so it seems like you can put a road behind there.
Even on this, sorry, over here, when you get down to this piece, you can move this out and then you get the bank and there's, there's more room there. Even with what's being proposed right here with widening this out a little bit, we're still gonna have to construct a small retaining wall for this piece right here. If you widen this out further to get the road, like leave the planter strip and the sidewalk, and try to push this even farther, then you're gonna be getting farther into that embankment and requiring significant retaining walls.
And that's more cost effective not to put the retaining wall in,
Yes.
opposed to put new sidewalks.
Yes.
Then the only other thing I got is this right here, this back-in parking. to me, it's a horrible idea. Statistics show that 83% of all accidents occur while we're backing up, and we only back up 1% of the time we drive. So that's huge. But, I mean, to get rid of the backup, I mean, if you're gonna punch this road in, and get rid of the sidewalks here, there'd be no parking on the outside of the road. Or what you call the smoke lane.
Drop-off lane.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know, and just because I felt like I was kind of slighted there. Four residents showed up to your meeting, and it was work. I would have been there, I'm one of them, so I don't think that's a good thing to point out. Our neighborhood cares about what's going on there, so.
Yeah, that's why we had the neighborhood meeting, because it was voiced that the neighbors wanted to be involved in it. And
we do.
That's why we listened to all of the, you know, there was the webpage that people had the ability to comment on. We listened to all those comments. We held the neighborhood meeting to give that opportunity.
I was just saying, there's a lot more than 4 people that care about it, so I couldn't make the meeting. Anyway, that's all I had. Hopefully that helps
Thank you.
you.
Any questions from the commission? Okay, thank you for your comments. Does anybody else have a need to say something at this point? Feel free to jump in anytime. This is a public hearing. So. Well, from our standpoint, we need to come up with a motion. Gene, to get you up to speed somewhat.
Yeah.
Steve, talk.
Steve filled me in
Okay.
where you are.
Do we have any consensus from our side?
Well, I feel, it's my opinion, they've done their due diligence in getting this going. And it's a lot better than it was in the past. And being a part of Traffic Safety Committee, this has been a hot topic for a long time, long before I was even there 2 years ago. It'll probably continue to be until it's completed. So to see it completed would be good. They've made a lot of progress. I don't know if it's fair determining that they haven't made satisfactory progress, but there is also the issue of down the line, if for some reason the money doesn't show up or for whatever reason it doesn't happen, then we've already passed this opportunity to hold them to it.
That's why I say we could ask to have them report back to us, but not hold up to fact or.
I'm sorry, I work for the school district.
You should come up and give us. I would like, before you start, one thing I would like to say on this, that the plan can still be modified until we get actual budgets and get contracts, so that if something comes up and we have to modify this, it's not set in stone at this point. Am I right? Okay, sorry.
Okay, real quick, I'm Don Carter, 3455 Royal Crest Drive, east of the Dow, and I work for the school district. First of all, I want to address everybody, thank you, the neighbors and everything. We are concerned about the neighbors, the neighborhood, but it is all about the kids. So I think when we talk about what can we have them, whether it's the city or the school district, hold on to make sure that we do this and they do this. We're going to do whatever it takes to make it safe for the kids. And we know that this is the safest plan. Unless somebody comes up with a better plan that's safer, we'll do the safer plan. But that is your guarantee that we're going to do whatever is safe. And yes, whether it's the grant funds or whatever, we're going to do whatever it takes to make it safe. So it's not like, okay, we approved it. And I also feel that we have met the satisfied, for the event agreement. But, then what teeth do you hold? Really, it's it's all about the safety of the kids. We're not gonna stop because you say, okay, now we granted, it's all good, we're not gonna stop. If it's safer for the kids, we're gonna do it. Now, if the city decides, or whoever decides not to give us the enterprise funds, we will seek funds elsewhere, but I'm sure the enterprise funds will be there as well. And that is the number 1 priority we have for those funds. I just want to make that comment. And I do want to appreciate the neighbors too. Any questions?
Thank you.
Well, are we basically agreeing that on the verbiage, okay. Move to find the Northern Wasco County School District number 21 has satisfied the requirements, the modified conditions of number 13, CUP number 173-14. And we would like to ask them to come back and give us an update.
I think it would be interesting
Can we
to
legally
do
do that? We're not requiring that they come back. Can we ask them to come back?
Well, if I remember it, I think the previous condition did actually set up some timelines for them to come back and report. That was part of, I think, of the last amended condition, if I remember correctly. So I think you can establish a possible day, or at least indicate you want them to come back, because you basically required that in your previous condition.
And if I may, who would you be asking to come back, and what would you be asking them to come back and report back? For what? What are you asking? I'm not quite following the logic here.
Well, in order to find out what the status of the project as it proceeds, we would need to have somebody from the city, engineering department probably, and somebody from the school district come back and just give us an update.
All right.
To show that funds are being set aside for this project, or being utilized for this project.
Well, you can request a staff report back, whether it's at a meeting or just a memo on when we find out the results of the grant application.
That would give us the same thing, but
That's
you
for
would
the-
have to obtain the information from those same folks to.
Right. That would be for the street improvements. For the on-site improvements, that's under the purview of the school district. And I believe there has been an agreement with the city and the county and the school district on the use of those enterprise zone funds. Correct, Mr. Parker?
I don't know if that's been finalized yet. We've been working on, I think, a draft of the agreement and some conditions, but I think it's all dependent on whether the funding comes through. But as far as I know, we've actually not finalized that yet.
So that too, we can report back when that item has been finalized and report back on the status of those funds.
So can I ask a question on the original requirement was simply that a plan be established to deal with the issue, not a completion of the whole project. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, on page
Then you're
14
right,
of
they
the
have-
agenda report, on the agenda packet, there's the language of that modified condition number 13, the report back on the funding source and specifically identifies the enterprise zone funds, and then also report back on construction cost estimates.
Okay.
And so,
Yeah, Bruce, I didn't mean to start a hornet's nest. I think this is like an amazing project. So I'm fine if we aren't seen as being helpful. I'm okay with just saying that they have actually done what they were asked to do. I agree with you. It'd be super to get an update, but I don't know if we need, it can be maybe more informal.
Yeah.
So I'm, if you're addressing a concern I had, I'm fine, and
Okay.
I didn't mean to overstate
No, I
things.
was hoping to try to work through some kind of consensus as to what we want to do with the
Yeah.
motion. I mean, we could toss one out, we could have somebody throw one out and see what happens, but it seemed like there was enough questions from the commission that they would like to have some kind of feedback from the parties down the road that.
I don't see anything,
Jeff?
I don't see anything in here that talks about the enterprise zone in that modified condition.
No,
I'm missing it.
No, just,
It's in the third paragraph. Condition number 13.
Right. Okay, there
As
it is.
part of,
Pursuant to the enterprise zone.
yeah, it's.
It is there, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's allowed,
Yeah.
not required to be.
Yeah.
I just know how those funds just disappear into other things. No matter what entity it is.
Okay.
So I would think a progress report that says, we're at this stage makes sense of funding it. But yes, I think they've done a lot of good work in getting this set up. And at first, when this was first proposed, it was like, you want what? And how are we going to do that? So I think they've done a fantastic job of creating something that actually seems to work.
Yeah, when they first came back to us, they came back with the idea of carving the bank out and putting up a large retaining wall, and that was going to be $910,000. And so they decided to invite the Blue Zone to try to avoid that. So they did, and that what they came up with was really good. This is really good. It's still $1 million, but it's good.
yeah. The other one was, didn't know whether it would work, but you spent $1 million and then
Yeah.
it could have just not worked, but we
Right.
know this will work.
Well, the idea that they came up with between the city and the school district to actually
It's important.
try this something out and you could see whether it worked or didn't work
Right.
was a big help. I mean, we're not in a position where we can demand the city do something or that the
School district.
school board have to do something, but we could, we're an interested party, let's put it that way.
We were in that position to require them to do something in order to get the 2 module
That's right.
school rooms up there.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I think in that light, I believe they've met the requirements.
If it's possible to hear an update on the grant funds though, and spring progress report as well. I'll make a motion to move to find that North Wasco County School District number 21 has satisfied the requirements of modified condition of approval number 13 for CUP number 173-14.
If I may, before you take action on this, I don't believe you closed the public hearing yet.
No.
No, we haven't.
Yeah, I'd just like to add one more thing, if you don't mind.
You wanna,
Well, just,
it's nice to get it recorded.
no, it's fine.
We value what you have to say, so we want to get it.
Anyway, all I was gonna say is, as a resident there,
Give us your name.
Chuck Carbone, 2100 Lewis Street.
Thank you.
I'm in favor of this. I mean, so if there was any doubt that, and Steve might not remember our conversations, but there was plenty of them when I called him prior to you guys even starting this, about my concern about the kids. So, I've raised 2 kids that went through the same school district, went to Dry Hollow, and I worried about them being, dropped off and hit by cars. It's unfortunate, usually it takes a tragedy, like the one down by Albertsons or Starbucks, but it didn't take long to get a
Signal.
new signal in there, did it? So,
We didn't want that to happen in this case. I mean, that's kind of.
well, this started in, I know you guys are, it's great that they're working together, but this started in 2014. This is 19. That's a long time to get a project done.
I know.
So it's a lot of trust that we're, gonna fund these guys. And I totally agree, you need something to say, yeah, we're moving forward with this, not 4 years later, 5 years later. We got the funding, if it's there, use it, it's our tax dollars, so I think we got some say in that. The only other thing I'd add is, I'm still against the back end. It's a terrible thing. If you guys modify, that'd be great. I'm glad you did away with the roundabout on the street. Go 30-foot trailer and I'm gonna try to get around it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. We close the public meeting? Okay, the public meeting is now closed. You're up.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to move that find that North Wasco County School District number 21 has satisfied the requirements of modified condition of approval number 13 for CUP number 173-14.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, raise your right hand.
Again, the city clerk has asked that we take a verbal roll call vote.
Yeah.
Why?
Because the tape can't pick up our hands.
Oh, okay. Although we can say that it was a unanimous vote. But go ahead, whatever you need.
Brent Bybee,
Aye.
Sarah Dufault,
Aye.
Mark Hoppa,
Aye.
Bruce LaRiere,
Aye.
John Nelson,
Aye.
Jeff South,
Reluctant aye.
and Steve Ross.
Aye.
Okay. Have we met our task for that particular public meeting? Gene's shaking his head,
I believe
yes.
so. Yes, if there was anything else on the item.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time, everybody. Our
I'll have to
next
pay a fine next week.
item okay, this is a quasi-judicial hearing. Now is the time specified by the Planning Commission to conduct a public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is as follows. To request a conditional use permit, 190-18, Americo Realty Estate Company requests to use existing retail building to accommodate indoor climate-controlled personal storage and retail sales of moving supplies. Additional use will include truck and trailer rentals and a temporary outdoor storage for rentals. Location of the property is located at 2640 West 6th Street and is further described as 2N 13E 32A, tax lot 400, property is zone CG, general commercial. Don, I guess you have the hot seat now.
Okay.
Excuse me, Chair, did you ask for any ex parte contacts or
No, I haven't
bias or
started
conflicts
reading.
of interest?
I'm sorry. I'm getting tired, sorry. Okay, the set of criteria upon which the Planning Commission will base its decision on this matter are contained in the city's comprehensive plan and land use development ordinance. Okay, a public hearing is required by law and certain rules apply. First and foremost, you must be recognized by the chair in order to speak and present testimony. When recognized by the chair, please proceed to the microphone by the podium and state your name and mailing address for the record. The hearing is required by law to be tape recorded. Generally, the public hearing proceeds as follows. Prior to the public hearing, a determination will be made of the qualification of commission members and allow for challenges from the audience. I will open the public hearing with the staff report. The purpose of the staff report at this point is to further identify the applicable criteria of the case being considered and to provide background information about the case. After the staff report, we will hear testimony from the proponents, those persons in favor of the application. Next, there will be testimony from the opponents, those not in favor of the application. Then there will be testimony from anyone else who wishes to offer testimony or ask questions. Then to honor the right of rebuttal, we will again hear from those in favor of the application. To expedite the hearing, commission members may ask questions of persons as they testify. When this process has been concluded, we will close the public testimony portion of the hearing. During the hearing, some important standards apply. First of all, those who testify must hold their testimony to the decision criteria. As in all land use hearings, there are a complete set of rules, procedures, and criteria we must follow. Second, failure to raise an issue accompanied by a statement of evidence sufficient to afford the commission members and the parties an opportunity to respond to that issue precludes an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Third, the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with details specific enough to allow the city to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Fourth, prior to the conclusion of the public hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence, arguments, or testimony regarding the application. If such a request is made, the law states the commission must grant the request by either continuing the hearing to a time and date at least 7 days from the date of the initial hearing, or the record must be kept open for a period of at least 7 days. These are the rules. Are there any questions? Okay. Have any members of the commission had any ex parte contact, conflict of interest, or bias which would prevent you from rendering an impartial decision in this matter? Jeff?
I want to state that I am a property manager. I manage a large indoor storage facility currently.
I have none.
Any problems with that?
No, I assume that you haven't discussed this application with the applicant or any...
I have not.
No, okay.
Okay. Anybody? Okay. Does anyone in the audience wish to challenge the qualifications of any members of the commission? I don't see anybody jumping forward. The public hearing is now open. Can we have the staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair LaViere. I will be quick. As stated in the request, this is an application to modify the existing Kmart facility, which is retail, into a climate-controlled indoor personal storage, also known as mini storage. The company that applied for the application is America Real Estate Company. They purchased the 7.69 acre parcel and are requesting the change of use. At this time, the current facility or the business of Kmart is actually still in operation, and they do have a lease that continues on. Per our code, Municipal Code Title 10, the requirement of a mini storage, or the use as mini storage, is actually to be reviewed as a conditional use permit. On the site plan, the applicant also included a notation about the south portion of the lot to be possibly used for a future retail pad. That we are not reviewing that today, so that is actually any type of future use at that location would require at least a site plan review, if not a conditional use permit. The existing site amenities include the large retail building as well as 383 parking spaces and landscaping. The site plan includes the modification of the parking area on the north side of the building to include to be used for the U-Haul equipment shunting. So that's this area right up in here. The building is currently located in the shopping center, which includes 6 properties, and it's shared access. Currently, Kmart occupies the subject building, small building that's attached, has about 3 to 4 retail type operations or service, and then this is Coastal Farm and Supply. We also have in the front here a couple which were originally constructed as restaurants, and those kind of share, it's in a shared area. The site actually it has one access, like shared access off of 6th Street, as well as 3 access points off of Snipe Street. Notification was sent to property owners within 300 feet for a conditional use permit, as well as city departments, franchise utilities, Columbia Fire and Rescue, Health Department, and building codes. As of the date written in the staff report and as of today, I have not received any written comments. I did receive an email or two inquiring about the meeting time and date. Staff's recommendation is approval with conditions based upon findings of fact. The application was deemed complete on December 7th, which is well within, so today obviously is well within the 120 days state mandated deadline, which would be April 6th. Quasi-judicial action for a conditional use permit is required with this application. The staff report is included, which I'm reading to you now, which details this standard relevant sections of our code, and it was included in the staff report. Public hearings for quasi-judicial planning actions shall occur within 45 days from the date of being deemed complete. Notice of the hearing was mailed to property owners within 300 feet on December 21st, and 15 copies of the site plan were submitted by the applicant. The review criteria includes the proposed use being conditionally allowed in the general commercial zone, and that staff believes that the criterion can be met with conditions of approval. In terms of standards, the section 10.5.060.050, which is our commercial general section, sets out development standards for the commercial general zone. And the applicant's plans show that all developments exists to the site and all standards will be met. Impact. Dealing with noise for the site, the proposed use will be inside an existing building with accessory truck and trailer shunting. The applicant will be advised of allowable levels of noise. Criterion will be addressed as a condition of approval. Lighting impacts across the property line. The applicant did not submit a lighting plan, and I don't know if any of you have been out to the Kmart recently. It's pretty dark at night, so they actually will be changing those lights and bringing those into a standard. Criterion has been, could be met with a condition of approval to meet those lighting requirements. Dust and other particulate matter shall be confined to the subject property. The applicant will be required to confine dust to the subject property. All areas on the site are currently paved, so they're really, it's pretty minimal, as well as landscaping is there. So it did include a condition of approval. Odors completely confined to the subject property. The use of mini storage and trailers doesn't usually generate any type of smells. However, I did include that as a condition of approval, as well as vibrations. The use as a personal storage in U-Haul does not typically cause a vibration. However, we'll let the applicant be aware of that requirement and that it can be addressed as a condition of approval. The last one is transportation, second to last one. Transportation system is capable or can be made capable of the additional traffic impacts for this site. Staff actually reviewed and took a look at the use going in. It's actually a less traffic generation than what a retail operation is. So the criterion is met for street capacities. There's currently 6 to 10 employees that are planned with the new use, which is far less than the number of employees that Kmart has. The existing parking will be adequately serve the employees as well as customer parking for the proposed use. There's also on-street parking, which I don't think I've ever really seen be used other than by large trucks on 6th Street. Bicycle parking was actually not included on the site plan. That will need to be added for the proposed change of use, as well as providing a bicycle rack for 10 spaces. I did include that as a condition of approval. Pedestrian safety and connectivity is met with the sidewalks being provided on all of the adjacent streets, 6 as well as Snipes. There'll be a condition of approval added that to have a pedestrian walkway to be marked clearly from the shunting area to the existing pedestrian walk area here. Property is not located in the historic district, so that criterion does not apply. Warehousing, so a conditional use permit in the commercial general zone is warehousing, retail, storage, and distribution of equipment, commodities, and products within an enclosed area, which includes mini storage facilities. The application is for mini storage. The use is allowed and subject to review by the Planning Commission. screening, the proposed refuse area was actually not shown on the site plan, and they will need to note either that it will be inside the building or show the area that it will be included for, to meet that condition of approval. And then access management, the existing access of the property meets the minimum necessary for emergency vehicles. Conclusion, the findings above demonstrate compliance with the Dallas Municipal Code Title 10, Land Use and Development. I provided 7 conditions of approval to meet all of these requirements. Do you have any questions of staff? I did also include, I didn't make it through, to show the access point. So this is one of the access points on Snipes. You can see the building here. Second access point, which is right at the throat of the building.
Is that 6 to 6?
So this would be Snipes is right here. So this is not 6, so this is just their private property that the shared access in. And then this would be back in the area where the shunting is and the third access or approach off of Snipes Street.
Is Kmart out of that building now, or?
No, Kmart is currently occupying, and they do have a lease, and I think the applicant can actually give a little bit of information as to how long that lease or what their stipulations are. I did also, in your packet, provide you with the applicant's submittal showing some of their modifications of existing Kmart facilities and other buildings that they have rehabbed and or changed or modified into these type of uses. So there, I included 3 just in the slideshow. This one is actually in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. So this was a former Kmart that was repurposed. This one is in Arizona. I think it's Sierra Vista, Arizona. So this was also a Kmart. It was changed. And then this one is in Missouri, it appears. And Michigan, Detroit, Michigan. So that's another one. So just kind of give you an idea of what they've done in other properties. Do you have any additional questions of staff?
What was the date the staff report was posted for this?
Date the staff report was posted. So it was mailed to the Planning Commission on, I think we ended up mailing it on last Friday instead of Thursday.
December 28th.
28th. Oh, hey, there we go. It's got the postage.
So within the code, 10.3.020.050 for quasi-judicial actions. It's noted that a copy of the staff report will be available for inspection at no cost, will be provided at a reasonable cost at least 7 days prior to the hearing. And it was posted Friday, so is that 6 days?
Well, so that's 6 days. It was ready. We ended up putting together the mail out on Friday is when we ended up putting the mail out together.
Okay.
So.
I just know there was a couple other citizens that I've talked to that were a little concerned with the timeline on that and being able to review it before it came to the commission as well, which is why I brought that up.
Does the commission have any more questions of staff?
Why the bicycle provision? I'm not going to stop by my storage unit and pick up a sofa with a bicycle.
We've had that question come up on a couple different uses, that it is a provision that is in our code, and maybe that's something that, as the planning commission, would suggest to look at us making a modification. So, but at this time, that is a standard. We have had other businesses go into places and they were surprised that bicycle parking was actually utilized. Sometimes employees do use the bicycle racks.
How many employees were there going to be in this?
6.
Six to
Okay,
10.
so obviously not all 6 of them are going to be using bicycles. I would think that 2 or 3 spaces with maybe room to expand later if necessary.
Yeah, so it's a basic standard that is set forth in the parking standard section of that code. So Chapter 10.7 actually details that. I don't know how we could deviate from that minimum requirement.
I would suspect it's not a deal breaker.
There should be plenty of parking. If there are no questions of staff at this point, does anyone wish to testify in favor of the application? If so, come up to the microphone, give us your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name's David Schaefer. I'm with U-Haul Company, and I live in Portland, Oregon. So, well, good evening. I'm here basically to answer any questions you have on this. A little bit of history on the acquisition and everything. As you guys know, these big stores are going out, and we've been repurposing a few of these stores into mini storage instead of leaving them sit idle. Currently, there's a number of Sam's Clubs, Walmarts, Kmart's, Sears that have gone under and basically are sitting idle right now. There's 3 sitting in Oregon that I'm aware of right now that are boarded up and idle. They're basically homes, a lot of homeless people right now, little few issues. 1 in Portland, 1 in Gresham, 1 in Salem. They have not been repurposed at this point. Americo Real Estate acquired this property in a purchase of a package, which was exciting for us. So we got a chance to repurpose a building in the Dalles without destroying the building. It's total repurpose. It will have state-of-the-art storage as far as fully climate controlled, fully individually alarmed units, controlled access, video monitored 24 hours a day, interior load, unload, so we won't have cars outside. It's basically the new storage, as Jeff could testify, it's a new storage standard that we're going to, and it's just, probably would tell you later on, Steve, people do ride their bikes to get to their storage units, believe it or not.
I believe you.
Especially in the city, but I'm sure out here also. The purpose of us moving in here is really to give the anchor to the community. That this whole region, not just the Dalles, but Wasco County is becoming very dynamic. We've seen a lot of equipment coming in here, moving in and out. Right now, we're the only rental agency that services the county, and we wish to continue that. And this has given us an opportunity to do so. As far as the amount of storage we'll end up with, we started out with basically an 83,000 square foot building, but 5,000 square feet of retail. We'll have sell hitches, moving supplies, towing packages, bicycle racks, things that go along with that. And then we'll end up with a net rentable square footage of about 48 to 50,000 square feet.
It's a lot of stuff.
So with that, if there's any questions I can answer.
So my question is, how does the operation work in terms of the mini storage units getting, so say I want to rent one of those and I come with my stuff. How do I get my stuff from my vehicle to the mini storage unit if it's inside the building?
Yeah, there'll be an interior load, unload location here where you'll actually back inside the building.
Oh.
And there'll be loading carts, everything.
Oh, so there's like, are they push cars? I mean, what are
Yeah,
they?
they're just regular push carts. There'll be a mattress cart, a push cart, a flat cart that you can go to your storage.
So you load it onto that and then
Yeah,
move it to your unit?
Is it just one car at a time, or?
No, there'll be 2 to 3 cars allowed, vehicles allowed in there.
So somebody mans that, or?
No, it'll be electronically controlled access.
Oh, so
if you rent it from me, you'll have a clicker, it'll open the door. Okay, and when you do that, it'll shut off, grant you access to it, shut off the alarm to your unit and your unit only, and allow you access to your unit.
Oh, nice.
It signals us that you're in there. It also signals our monitoring company, which we staff 24/7, that you're in there. We'll pick you up on camera. We know what's going on. And you're going to be able to unload it inside of there. Out of the weather.
How long do you foresee that Kmart will still be there?
Their lease runs through 2020. As you know, they're folding at different levels throughout the country. They could continue the lease up until the end of the lease. We don't know when or if Big K Sears would want to do a buyout. We did, part of the acquisition included a location up in Chehalis, Washington, and they immediately wanted out of that lease. Right now, this is probably one of the more active Kmarts I've seen, so it's doing well. I don't know how long it'll last. It's up to Sears, Big K on that one.
What size storage units do you have?
What
do you have?
We'll have 5 by 10s, 10 by 10s, 10 by 15s. We may run a couple of 10 by 20s, but probably not. We're going to keep them, again, mini storage size.
It's not able to store cars or?
No, it's all interior storage. No, this would not be vehicle storage. No outside access storage, it'd all be interior.
And what is involved with the show area? Outside?
Showroom?
Yeah, outside.
The shunting area.
What did you call that?
The shunting area, where we stage trucks for rental.
I guess, but there's another area there, to keep going out that way towards the Sixth Street. Yeah,
right here?
yeah, what's that?
Yeah, that's just for truck display and possible future expansion.
Okay.
There's a lot of discussion. Don and I had some discussions on possible use because it is a big lot. In a couple of our locations where we have lots like that, we even have things like farmers markets go in there. I know there's a farmers market here on Saturdays. Most cities would enjoy a weekday farmers market. It help pull some more retail and small vendor and small business people down to that end of the city, getting back down to the west side a little bit. I've got pictures of how we've done a few of those. So we leave it open. It's a large lot, more than we really need at this time. Marico's proposing possibly to remove this piece here, basically because it doesn't fit in the lot plan right there. As you see, it's a big cutout. It just, I don't know how it ended up as part of the lot, but it's an odd shape. Whether they do that or not, that'll be up to them. They're the property owners. Any other questions?
Does anybody else have any questions? I guess not. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the application? Okay, does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the application? Does anyone just wish to ask a question? If not, then we don't really would need a rebuttal. I guess we're open for discussion for a little while before we close the public hearing. Anyone have any comments, feelings? Okay. Are you ready to close the public portion of the meeting?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, the public portion of the meeting is now closed. I assume that you all have enough information to make a decision.
If we extended the public comment time, I don't know if it would do any good, but I would just, I'm not a huge fan of Kmart, but it's retail, right? I mean, and we don't have a lot of retail space. I've seen these kind of facilities and they're lovely, but I don't know, I'm torn.
So no comments were received?
No comments were received.
There's not much in 300
Sears seems
feet
to be
of there.
going under anyway, and I don't want to see the building just sit there empty. You know, if U-Haul wants to utilize it, it seems like a good idea, really. You know, we've had other large retail places sit empty for years, like, well, let's see, I think Ernst went out of business a year after I moved to town, and that sat empty for about a decade, I think. And then Postal Farm and Supply was in what used to be the shopping cart, and that was empty for, I think, about 2 decades. So if, you know, if we have someone that's ready to jump into a space that's probably going to be vacant in a couple of years anyway, I'd say go for it.
So Brent, to answer your question, there were no comments received. Those were mailed out 10 days in advance. I did receive just an email verifying time and date on the 24th of December. So that would have been the day after they were mailed out. A couple days after they were mailed out.
And that was, notice was sent out a certain
300-foot
distance
buffer.
around?
Right,
Okay.
300-foot buffer as well as other agencies and offices, which was a pretty substantial mail out.
Really? What, the apartments or?
So you would have, yeah, I mean, just the 300, it's amazing how 300-foot will make a difference. I could probably give you an idea number-wise. On this notice.
Because that was my only concern, is that it was a small number. What, hon?
Just across from the cinema, you have a whole bunch of apartments back there, so.
Is that within, I'm not spatially gifted.
Yeah.
Well, if you go to the left, on the other
looks-
side of the parking lot, that's the cinema,
It's a football field like.
yeah. And then just across the street, and I can't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so-
that corner. I think Cascade Housing has that complex in there.
That kind of allays my concern.
It looks like there's about 19 properties that were actually notified, or noticed, just individual properties, and then that doesn't include all of our other agencies, so all of this hash mark was notified.
Just out of curiosity, when you notify properties, in the case of rental properties, do you just notify the property owner, or do you also notify the tenant?
Correct, we use the assessor's document, or the maps, and the current owner listed on those GIS
So it's just the
maps.
owner.
Correct.
So in that case, like it'd be Cascade Housing that was notified, not the individual tenants.
Cascade Housing is often the manager, not the owner, so if it's owned by a different party, then they would be notified.
Oh, okay.
Not necessarily.
A couple different, like, just for example, Peterson's Mobile Village, the mobile home park, is within that 300-foot buffer, which is actually down 7th Street right here. Fast, and I'm not sure, there's a couple different. KMC, Peterson Mobile, Laxmi. I'm not sure, Sunrise Estates Apartments, that's obviously I think that's these apartments right here. Harmony Investments Properties. Could be one also. And it also does go across 84 here. Some of those properties were included. And then Westside Village Apartments, so that must be the other one, kitty corner from the intersection there.
Are we prepared to throw out a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. Make a motion to approve conditional use permit number 190-18, subject to the 7 conditions that were presented by staff and based on findings of facts which were reviewed or explained by the staff at this meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I assume you want to go through the roll call again. That's going to be a normal process from here, I assume.
Yes.
Yes.
Greg Bybee,
Nay.
Sharon Dufault,
Yes.
Mark Popoff,
Yes.
Bruce Lavalier,
Yes.
John Nelson.
Yes.
Jeff Stiles,
Abstain?
and Steve Ross.
Yes.
Okay. Then the next item would be the resolution number PC 578-19. which is the resolution for what we just passed. Approving CUP 190-18. We have a motion for that.
I'll make that motion to approve resolution PC 578-19.
Second that.
Moved and seconded. Do you want to go through it again?
Brett Bybee,
Abstain.
Sharon DePaul,
Yes.
Mark Papa,
Yes?
Bruce LaViere,
Yes.
John Nelson.
Yes.
Jeff Styles,
Abstain.
and Steve Ross.
Yes.
Next item is staff comments.
Just a couple of items this evening. Your next regularly scheduled meeting is the 17th, and we do not have any public hearings scheduled for that, so if you wish to cancel that meeting, the option is yours.
There's nothing, no business. There's no reason for the meeting.
So then our next meeting would be February, the first meeting.
February 7th?
February
That would be
7th.
the next meeting after that. And so we should have a better idea mid-month how we're looking on public hearing items. We have a couple of items that are currently going through the process. And I think, I'm not sure whether we had the decision from LUBA on the appeal for the item we had on West 19th Street. I don't know if we reported that out to you. That came from before, after your last meeting?
Yeah, it did. It came on December 11th, and the board affirmed the city council's action. I was quite pleased as they basically cited all the legal authority that I'd put forth to explain why we thought that the city's decision was reasonable and proper, and the board agreed. As to the other appeal, we were advised this week that Mrs. Hunt intends to pursue that appeal. That one had been sort of put on hold depending on this case, the other case coming through, but she has decided to pursue that appeal. So we'll be hearing from the board about when the petition for review will be due in that case, and we'll file a response. We don't know whether they're going to try to raise the same issue that they lost this first time. I would think that would be a difficult issue for them to raise because we have a clear decision now that our interpretation was appropriate. So I don't know what other issues she'll raise, but we'll find out when she files her petition.
That concludes the staff comments for this evening.
Commissioner comments and questions? I have a question for Dale. We've got two fairly good-sized developments scheduled in the Dalles, it looks like. One over where KODL used to be, and the other one on the east side where they've taken out the cherry orchards. Is anybody going to look at the effect that's going to have on the intersections associated with people coming in and going from those developments?
Well, the one up off of by the old KODL site, I believe is
The radio?
The Radio Way and 20th Street there. When they're conditioned, anytime you do a subdivision of 16 lots or more, requires a traffic study to be conducted for the development and submitted. This first phase that they're working on right now is only 13 lots, and it's just the lots that are adjacent to 20th and Radio Way. So the traffic study is not required for this first phase, but as soon as the second phase goes into the process, then they will be required to do a traffic study for that.
That's kind of a bad intersection anyway, with the curve in there.
Yeah, so we'll be getting information on that and looking at that.
Does that include lots that front on Scenic?
It'll be looking at the traffic of that subdivision and also what the existing traffic is in those intersections. Those intersections will be being required to be evaluated.
So
It won't be it won't be just the traffic that's being generated by the subdivision. They'll be looking at the traffic, doing the AM and PM peak counts of whatever intersections that the city requires to be looked at.
So no access will be off of Scenic Drive.
Oh.
They will be accessing all off of Radio Way and then have a road that goes down through,
Or 20th.
or 20th Street, excuse me. So will not be coming off of Scenic. The other property that you're talking about is actually some of John Geiger's property, and it is actually, has been removed, and he is planting to replant, or planning to replant.
Oh, that's interesting.
We have not seen any applications or implications. In fact, I think the upper lot has already been replanted. I'd be surprised. We do actually have two other subdivisions, one that was just recently completed, which is the Lone Pine. It was the phase 5, 6, and 7, 6, 7, and 8, 5, 6, and 7. So that we actually have that, we just signed off, they've completed the improvements. And then Whispering Pines, which is up off of
10th.
Alberta and 15th, 14th. That will actually be, they are working on that right now, so they haven't completed.
That's on the
it.
west.
Lone Pine one, wasn't the filling out of that development going to drive the question of whether or not we put a roundabout in there?
Yes, absolutely. So they will be required to revise, one of the conditions of approval was that they revise or sign a new or revised agreement of that roundabout, which is that there's a new regional planner with ODOT that we're working with. His name is Don Morehouse, and we're anxiously awaiting his return from vacation so that we can get that revised and/or new document signed by all parties.
The east side, if those orchards had been not replanted, and you ended up with that filling up with houses, then all those intersections associated with Thompson Street, particularly 10th and Thompson, but some of the rest of those are going to have to be re-looked at seriously.
And again, like Dale stated, anything over 15 or 16 would require a traffic study, so.
But the big question is, what do you do with 10th and Thompson?
And there's plans from the recently updated TSP for improvements at 10th and Thompson. That was a big discussion item as part of that transportation system plan update. So we have conceptual plans that were derived from that process of what improvements.
I think I remember
possibly being made there.
Okay.
So the is it Whispering Pines? Is that the one that's west side, right? It's up off.
Correct.
above
And this
10th.
is like their third or fourth phase.
Yeah.
I think they've been doing subdivision since Dale and I both been at the city 20-plus years ago.
The serial partitioning and
We've changed our, well, actually, yeah, that requires it to be a subdivision, which then requires the full improvements.
So that's where it's at now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's houses are going up at this time.
There will be, at this time, they're still constructing, I believe they're constructing the right-of-way at this time, and the infrastructure.
Is that also the one that kind of started before the recession in 2008?
Yes.
And then there was some work done there, and then it just came to a halt?
Yes, and I think it
That's that
actually, 90s, I think, was the original, it was in the early to mid-90s is when they first started. So the Richmond family has actually done that, and one of the sons is actually a builder, so.
Okay, yeah, I remember going up there and looking at that.
Any other comments or questions?
Was the dock down on the waterfront for when the boats come in, was that approved through the planning department?
It was, there was also, that's been a while ago, phew. There was also a permit that was required from the Corps of Engineers, and Jean, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that there was a sliver that was, it didn't, oh, there was the planning, it did go through the planning review as well as all of the waterway, can't remember exactly, there was a couple agencies.
Coming to the planning commission.
Not to the planning commission, I'm sorry, but it was planning review, so it would have been a site plan review
Is that floodplain and
for
everything?
an industrial, yeah.
Just one thing I noticed especially during the summers, that whenever the boats are coming in, there's not really any place for them to put their trash. They tend to just dump their trash right there on the sidewalk. I didn't know if there was any conditions put into place for them to have a dumpster there or not, or how they're dealing with that.
So it's my understanding, and I wish Jim Shoynoff was here because he's kind of the one that helps facility down there. They do have the actual Dow's Disposal show up and pick up the trash. I'm not sure if they have a yard.
I drive by it numerous times a day, because that's where our offices are over there, and that's what they do, is they take the garbage out, pile it up in the corner there, and all the bags, and then the Dow's Disposal comes and picks it all up for them.
Okay, gotcha.
So, yeah.
I didn't know how long it was sitting there, because I had driven by there a few times and seen it.
We've had the Kiwanis group actually has gone along the waterfront and done quite a few cleanups. The trash that they're noting is not from the ships, it's actually from kids and transients along the waterways there. So I know Tim McLaughlin, Councilor McLaughlin's been out there pretty regularly for the last couple of years.
Little lion.
Yeah.
They have fuel trucks come, fueling and refueling. They have delivery trucks bringing more food, dropping that off. They do the garbage. There's quite a bit of operation that happens there at front.
Okay.
It's a pretty busy place.
Anything else? I think that's it. Let's go home.
Thank you.
Great excuse. Great meeting. We did a lot.